In this lesson, we're going to learn how to use our data with our code by casting it into a variable of the type we're expecting. And this gets around a pragma strict error that we're going to receive. So here's where we left off, and we're successfully printing out all of the information in our debug log. So we've got the data we're passing, we've got our object name and our script name and our notification name. So now let's actually integrate this into our health. So instead of subtracting 1 from the health whenever we call this, let's actually subtract our note.data. So let's say start health minus equals our notification or our note.data. And what this is saying is start health equals start health minus note.data. And remember, we're passing an integer in so that we should get an error-free result. But if we save this and jump back to Unity, what we're going to see is an error. Operator minus cannot be used with the left hand of int and a right side of object. Now, what is this saying? Because we're not going to be able to get rid of this error until we actually figure out why this is happening and how we're going to get around it. So this kind of an error comes up whenever we try to do things that our data type or our variable type cannot do. So, for example, if we tried to add a string, which is just a bunch of characters, if we tried to add the string health to a number like 5, Unity is going to say, I don't know how to do that because strings aren't numbers. And so what it's saying right here is, I don't know how to subtract note.data because to me, data is just a general object. And so it has no idea what type of object note.data is. And this is because in our notification center, we don't know what type of data we want to work with. Some notifications might want to send integers like we're doing here. Others might want to send strings. Others might want to send a whole dictionary or a hash table to send along a lot of information. And because of that, Notification Center was written with a typeless return or a typeless object. Now, with pragma strict, at the top of your scripts, or if you're developing for the mobile platform, you cannot really use this typeless information because it's not going to be able to assume what kind of type it is. Or in other words, it's not going to make any assumptions about what .data is. The way around this is we tell Unity explicitly that note.data is an integer. And we can do that by creating a new integer variable and casting data into this variable. So let's just create our normal variable. So let's say variable, and if you recall it was called click, let's just call this n data or note data. And we need to cast this into an integer, so colon integer or int equals, and then we can put in this note.data. And so with this line, we've created a new container called note.data of type integer. And now we're telling Unity, shove this generic object into our integer container as best you can. Now, since we know we're sending ourselves an integer, because we can just go look at oil explosion, say, all right, that's an integer, we're sending it along. So we need to put it into an integer. The data is going to come in perfectly fine. So now let's come in and put note data after our minus equals and hit save. And now we're going to see that our error disappears, and if we hit play, we can click and our health is being reduced normally. Now, since we didn't do both lines, we're getting a little bit of a strange playback with the regeneration. So let's just copy this line and paste it after our regen health as well. So we now have our health decreasing the number of times of our clicks. So 1 click is 1 health, 2 clicks is 2 health, 3 clicks is 3, and so on and so forth. So now we are successfully passing data from our oil drum script or our oil explosion to our health script. And again, that was a very simple process. We just need to pass that data in as a third argument when we post the notification, and then we need to cast it into the variable type that we're sending. And this is what trips up many people because the error is a little bit cryptic. What's an object? Why is Unity taking my integer and turning it into an object, and how do I get it back? And the answer is simply just create a new variable of the type that you know you're sending yourself, and then put your data into that variable, and now Unity understands that, hey, this data is an integer, so now we can use it. And just in this case, we used integer, but of course you can use any of the data types that we have available in Unity. And if you need to pass a lot of data, you can use something like an array or a dictionary or some kind of larger data structure that you can pass in between your scripts. And this is essentially the end of Notification Center. It's an incredibly powerful system, but its power is also in its simplicity. We only have to really remember how to do three things. We need to remember how to post a notification so that we can talk to other scripts. We need to remember how to add an observer so we're listening for that. And then we just need to remember how we can access the data that we might pass in between those scripts on top of or inside that notification. So in the next lesson, let's take a look at when we want to use Notification Center and some instances where we should use other ways for our scripts to communicate.